My final thoughts for the Bills matchup against the Patriots on Thursday night, an injury update with Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills, and of course my predictions for Thursday are all coming your way today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino from the Draft Network, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Happy Wednesday to you, and thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day. And as a reminder to you, we are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Well, this is going to feel like a Friday podcast, but the Bills are once again playing on Thursday, and so we're going to have our discussion today, which will include my final thoughts, the injury stuff, and of course my predictions. And then I'm also going to give you our typical crossover Thursday discussion with Mike Debate, the host of Locked On Patriots. So this won't be the last episode in your feed before the Bills play the Patriots. So just keep in mind, I'm going to post 2 episodes on Wednesday for you to have all the normal pregame stuff that we do here on Locked On Bills. So just be aware that there's another podcast coming before the Bills play the Patriots on Thursday night. So let's talk about that matchup a little bit more. Bills-Patriots Thursday night, big game. Bills looking for their first AFC East win. Obviously a very competitive division right now with the Dolphins also 8-3. The Jets are having a good season. Everybody in the AFC East has a winning record. And so this stretch of games here is going to define the Bills' opportunity to win a third consecutive AFC East title. And so with that starting against the Patriots on Thursday, there's some stuff on my mind that I want to kind of reiterate some of these points, but also just kind of talk about them here as we're very close to kickoff. But as I consider the prevailing thought on my mind for this matchup on Thursday, it is literally pass rush. Pass rush is going to decide this game, and in some ways, that's concerning for the Bills. So I want to look at it a little bit more in depth from both sides of the coin. The Bills' offensive line against the Patriots pass rush and the Patriots' offensive line against the Bills' pass rush. We'll start with the Bills' offensive line against the Patriots pass rush. And one of my paramount concerns is just that I don't think Deion Dawkins is going to play in this game. That's your starting left tackle, your blindside protector for the Buffalo Bills, going up against Matthew Judon, who leads the NFL in sacks. Everybody thinks Micah Parsons is this amazing sack artist. Well, guess what? Matthew Judon has more sacks this year than him. And so now you have a situation where David Quessenberry is likely to be your starting left tackle. That's concerning to me. You have a situation here with the Patriots where they're number 2 in the NFL in pressure rate. They're number 2 in the NFL in sack rate. The percentage of passing plays against the Patriots defense that result in either a sack or a pressure, number 2 in the NFL. They're very good at getting after the quarterback. And their blitz rate is middle of the pack. So it's not always because they're sending extra rushers. They're getting organic pressure, and they're also getting effective pressure through the blitz. And obviously Matthew Judon's having a career year, but Deatrick Wise is having a great season, and he plays off the edge and can reduce inside and play on the interior as well. Josh Uche is a big-time speed rusher that provides a different skill set. So you have a lot of length and power in Judon and Wise, and then you kind of have this speedy player in Uche who's tough to deal with. And that's where their pressure is coming from. It's those 3 players. And then, of course, you kind of have other guys sprinkled in from time to time, whether it's a linebacker or one of their interior players. But those are the 3 main players that affect the quarterback. And I guess it's a big win for the Bills that Christian Barmore is not available for the Patriots right now, because he would be that interior guy that would really take this over the top. He's hurt, and he's a bright young player out of Alabama that, you saw him last year. He gave the Bills a lot of trouble last year. So what does this mean for the Bills? What's the plan? What do you do here? Got a backup left tackle going up against a really good pass rush. I think you have to incorporate a lot of different things here. First of all, I think you have, when you throw the football, I want spread. I think you have to go with 4 or 5 wide receivers or 4 or 5 eligibles on every play. You don't want to do a whole lot of max protecting. And I think you want to make this a space game. I think you have the opportunity to have better athletes at receiver or whoever your eligibles are going to be against this Patriots defense. I think you make this a space game. You trust Josh Allen to find matchups that he likes and get the ball to him. I think that's one of the key things that you can do. Spread it out and get the ball out of Josh Allen's hands pretty quickly. That's going to get the pass rush to slow down a little bit. And then the other things are the typical things that anybody does against a great pass rush, screens and draws. And I don't think we've seen a ton of that yet this year from the Bills. And so, Ken Dorsey, whatever you got in the bag for draws and screenplays, it's time to break them out. Time to break them out. That's how you're going to help slow down a pass rush against a situation where, let's face it, with David Quessenberry and Spencer Brown being your tackles, that's not great. Up and down player in Spencer Brown, and David Quessenberry, he's a reserve. He's a reserve for a reason, and he's a better run blocker than he is a pass blocker. So that's my thoughts on that lens. Bills O-line versus the Patriots pass rush. Now, fortunately, Josh Allen's a quarterback that doesn't crumble under pressure. That helps a lot, right? He can make throws under pressure. He can make people miss in the pocket. He can extend plays. We know that Josh Allen is a quarterback that can break all the rules, right? He can overcome this. So you also love that Josh Allen's your quarterback in a game like this. Now kind of shifting it over to the Pats offensive line versus the Bills pass rush. We talked about this yesterday on the podcast when we talked about Mac Jones and the pressure splits. This guy crumbles under pressure. Crumbles. Completion percentage 45% and his passer rating of 27.6. That's dead last in the NFL in passer rating under pressure. Meanwhile, he's quite good. He's got the number 2 completion percentage at 76% when he's kept clean and 104 passer rating when he's kept clean. Mac Jones has also struggled mightily against the blitz this year. Big time. Completion percentage of 54%. That's second worst in the NFL. And a passer rating of 56.3 when he's blitzed. That's dead last in the NFL. You have to affect Mac Jones. If you get pressure on him, he's really struggles. He can't function. So how do you do that? How do you do that in your first game without Von Miller this year? Well, it's helpful that you're going to get Greg Rousseau and A.J. Epinesa back. That's certainly part of it. But when I think about what the Bills need to do to really affect Mac Jones, this is the type of game where you want to dial up your pressure packages. Send DBs, send linebackers. Get creative with how you deploy the 4, 5, 6 players that you're going to send at the pocket. This is the week for Leslie Frazier to be in his bag and utilize a variety of different looks to create pressure. You can blitz this team a little bit more than you have been able to or been willing to blitz other teams in the past. It's going to rely a lot on the defensive tackles. Ed Oliver, Jordan Phillips, Tim Settle, Daquan Jones. You can win on this interior. Cole Strange is going to be the starting left guard. That's an opportunity to get some wins. You should be able to overpower him. And then you look at guys like Boogie Basham and A.J. Epinesa. You got to have it, right? This is it. Deliver. You guys were second-round picks. And it's not like the Bills don't have talent without Von Miller. That's not the case. Shaq Lawson, first-round pick. Greg Rousseau, first-round pick. Basham and Epinesa, second-round picks. Ed Oliver, top 10 pick. Jordan Phillips was an early second-round pick. Daquan Jones and Tim Settle are guys that have earned contracts. They have talent. They have talent. And I appreciate, I think Sean McDermott said this week, you know, Von Miller was brought here for a reason, but we drafted A.J. Epinesa and Boogie Basham and Greg Rousseau for a reason too. All right. Need to see it. Has to happen this week. But I think when it all boils down, as I consider everything that I just talked about, there's a part of me that really doesn't like that so much of this game is going to be shouldered on the performances of David Quessenberry and Spencer Brown and Boogie Basham and A.J. Epinesa. I don't love that. I don't love that those are critical players in this game. But that's the world that we're living in right now. And so for the Bills rushing the passer and affecting Mac Jones, it has to be an all of the above situation. That's got to be the plan. The good news is you can blitz this team. Some teams you don't want to blitz, they're going to kill you. That's not the case with the Patriots. And I think that's an X factor in inspiring hope that the Bills can be an effective pass rush without Von Miller on Thursday night. The next thing I want to talk about here in the leftover thoughts or final thoughts is that the Patriots, look, Belichick's been there for 23 years, but they still have this core philosophy that they would just love you to beat yourself. They're going to invite you to beat yourself. So what does that mean, and what does that mean specifically for Thursday? Well, the Patriots, they want to play a boring football game. Punts, field goals, field position, running the football, all of that, right? That's their method. And meanwhile, put stress on you to be the more dynamic team and along the way make some mistakes. They've won championships doing this. So what are some of those X factors? Well, first of all, special teams. I think the Bills have the better kicker and the better punter in this football game. Both teams have good coverage units, and both teams have really good return guys in Nyheim Hines and Marcus Jones. But I'll tell you, this Marcus Jones is a problem. He's a big-time X factor for New England. He's an exceptional young kick and punt returner. You don't want to mess with that guy. Don't allow him to provide a spark for an offense that has been sputtering all year. So special teams matters. Taking care of the football matters in this game, which we've talked about all year long. The Bills have not done well to take care of the football. Now, the good news is they've only turned the ball over once in the last two games, but they still lead the NFL in turnover percentage at 16.4% of drives ending in a turnover for the Bills offense. Meanwhile, the Patriots are very good at taking away the football on defense. 13% of the drives against the Patriots on defense end in a Patriots turnover or a Patriots takeaway. That's 8th best in the NFL. So you have a bad dynamic of a team that gives away the football against a defense that takes away the football. But there's good news. The Patriots haven't been great at taking care of the football either this year. They turn it over 13.6% of the time. That's 5th worst in the league. So you have two offenses here that are in the bottom 5 when it comes to taking care of the football. Now, like I said, the Bills only have turned over the ball once in the last 2 games. The Patriots have now gone 2 consecutive games without turning over the ball. So both teams are trending in the right direction there. But just like I said, for the Patriots and how they're good at taking away the football, the Bills are even better at taking away the football. 15.3% of drives against the Bills defense end in a takeaway. 3rd best in the league. Turnovers are going to be a big part of this game. And for the Bills, hopefully there's no turnovers and they get takeaways. But you got to take care of the ball on Thursday night. And I'll leave you with this, in this segment at least. I'm not done. We'll talk about injuries and I got predictions. But the X factor for the Bills is always Josh Allen. It's always Josh Allen. If we get vintage Josh on Thursday, the Bills are going to have a great night. But we hadn't seen vintage Josh since the first half of the Packers game, right? We've seen little moments, right? Little moments, that throw to Diggs. Sprinkles here and there, right? But for the most part, since the second half of the Packers game, which leads into the injury and all that, Josh hadn't been vintage Josh. But if he can be, and he can put the Patriots in a spot where they have to rely on Mac Jones to carry the team, that has never gone well for the Patriots. The more Mac Jones has to be the catalyst for that offense, the better for the Bills and the worse for the Patriots. Can they get out there and be a dynamic offense and score points? And Josh Allen look like the MVP caliber player that we've enjoyed him being for the last 2.5 years. I think that comes from Josh Allen having confidence and Ken Dorsey being in his bag. I think making this a space game will allow Josh to play his best football against a good Patriots defense. Today's episode is brought to you by Turo. Turo is the world's largest car sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car that you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. You can browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the U.S., U.K., Canada, and coming soon to Australia. You can book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip. You can get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. You can find an affordable economy car if you're on a budget and you just need to get from A to B. You can test drive that new electric vehicle that you've had your eye on to see how it fits into your everyday life. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Forget boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. This episode is brought to you by Audible. Audible is releasing a slate of new football podcasts that we're sure you're going to love. You can find Block Forever now wherever you get your podcast. Block Forever is a brand new podcast from former NFL All-Pro Ryan Khalil and Audible. Khalil takes the conversation about football to the next level. He gives football fans an insider's look at the game through the eyes of the greatest players and personalities of all time, and new episodes of Block Forever will be recorded and released every week ahead of Thursday Night Football. So you can catch the full Block Forever series available anywhere you get your podcast, available right now. Audible, get in the game. I'm joined now by Kyle Trimble. He's a doctor of physical therapy. He runs bangedupbills.com. You can follow him on Twitter at bangedupbills. He joins us each week to talk injuries ahead of the coming Bills game. And Kyle, we have some stuff to get into. There's not a huge report, but it also gives us an opportunity to talk a little bit about some of these players that are coming back that had more of a long-term injury. So it should be a good conversation today, but we do have to start with Von Miller, who left the game on Thanksgiving with a knee injury. We all held our breath overnight, fearing that it was an ACL tear. Well, it's not an ACL tear, but there is some problems there, and the timetable is a little bit unclear. Very anxious for any insight that you can offer us.
So, as you recall, Von Miller went down with a right knee injury with just over 2 minutes left in the second quarter. By video, there was a significant worry for ACL tear because he had that valgus force, the knee going inward, the foot pointing outward and getting caught in the turf there. So, thankfully, that wasn't the case. Reports came out that they initially said it was a knee sprain, and then clarification from the MRI report said there was a lateral meniscus tear, which is your meniscus is basically shock absorbers in the knees, and there are two C-shaped areas in there. Well, the lateral meniscus is the outside portion on the outside portion of the knee, and that's just one of those areas that help provide shock absorption. So the key thing is we don't know a clear timeline, and the Bills probably have a good idea what they want to do, but they still aren't definitive. And when I say that is they're waiting 7 to 10 days for him to rest and see how his knee responds to rehab there. And he has said on his Twitch stream, which I don't watch, people send me this stuff, and he said that he's been working hard in rehab, which I expect him to at this point. But I think they want to see how his knee responds to rehab. If it's swollen up a lot, if it's locking up on him, if it's having a ton of pain, that's going to be the key things that they're looking for to see whether they can go from a rest and rehab approach or whether they have to do a meniscectomy, which is cutting out the piece of the meniscus, or God forbid they have to do a meniscus repair. They know what type of tear it is in there based on the MRI results, but of course they're not going to tell us because that would give away what they're going to do there. So either they're going to do, likely he's going to try to play through this if he can, because I feel like that's the kind of guy Von Miller is. So I feel like they're either going to do the surgery route where they trim out the things, which could have its downsides of causing arthritic changes later on, or they try to do the rest and rehab and then either trim things out later on after the season, or if it requires a repair it then. So we're waiting to see what happens. We already know he's out for the Patriots game, but he could come back as quick as the Jets game, though I feel like they're going to want to see how he slowly ramps back up and maybe come back for the Dolphins game. But this is still very much up in the air, but this is probably one of the best case scenarios for his injury in terms of if you have to have an injury, I'd rather have a meniscus tear or even an MCL sprain. That might have been one of the better ones. But after that, you probably get into some more long-term season-ending stuff. So the Bills Mafia really dodged a bullet with Von Miller last Thursday.
Look, it sounds like there's still a wide range of outcomes here, but fingers crossed that rest and rehab gets him back on the field and he's still a very effective player for the Bills. I will ask you one little question here that I'm going to sneak in. Was this turf related? Was the turf at Ford Field part of what contributed to this?
That's hard to say because we know his foot was planted down, but he was trying to drive forward, and then he had some of the Detroit offensive linemen kind of fall into him. So it's hard to say. He was moving forward, and I'm sure that the bodies falling on him didn't help things because how the meniscus tears is that shearing. So he's weight bearing through the knee, and there's that rotational component through the knee. We see that with an ACL tear, but the ACL was spared because either his hip was turned in enough or there was enough knee bend that took some slack, or that gave the ACL some slack and allowed the meniscus to take the brunt of that injury there. So it's hard to say. You can suffer the type of injury on grass, but either way, we probably should get rid of that turf at Detroit, New York, and New Orleans, everywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you on that. Let's talk about another player that was injured on Thanksgiving, Deion Dawkins, a Bills starting left tackle. I have a great level of concern about not having him for this game, which if anyone listens to the rest of the podcast, which surely you did if you're in the middle of it, listening to this part, you know that I have a lot of concern about this. It's an ankle, if I'm not mistaken, ankle injury. What can you tell us about Deion Dawkins?
So by video, it looked like a high ankle sprain. And what happened was there's a Detroit defender coming in, try to tackle Josh Allen. He's trying to run out of it. The guy gets swung around and takes out Dawkins from behind. The one benefit was Dawkins was moving forward. His ankle gets clipped. And keep in mind, this is right ankle. It gets clipped. And as the defender is falling into Deion's ankle, the ankle kind of squirts out, which means that I don't believe it took the full brunt of what a high ankle could be there. So they never classified him as week to week, day to day. They just said they're going to take it one day at a time here. So I don't have hope that he's going to play on Thursday just because of the freshness of the ankle injury, even if it is a high ankle, a mild one at best there. We have to wait and see what happens with Wednesday. I feel like they might give him questionable designation and then see what happens with that. If he is going to play, there's a silver lining with this there, but I don't think he's going to just because of the freshness of the injury, keep him out until the Jets game. But there is a far smarter PT than me out there. There's a lot of them, believe it or not. But his name's Aaron Borgman. He was the athletic trainer, physical therapist for the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles for 12 years. He was talking reference about the Tristan Wirfs injury with the Buccaneers, and he also suffered a high ankle sprain. So, Aaron was talking about that offensive lineman can return a lot quicker because of the positional demands and, just how they attack rehab. But knowing that Tristan Wirfs suffered a left ankle injury playing right tackle, that injured leg is on the inside when they're talking about moving around there. So he references as pass protection is that the outside ankle being the non-affected one for Wirfs, he'd able to work in pass protection and shuffle out sideways and not stress the ankle, whereas the inside ankle would be more of that pivot ankle, if you will. So think about with Dawkins. He plays left tackle. His right ankle is on the inside portion, which means he's going to be able to pivot off that right ankle, not have to stress it as much. So he could return quicker if it's as mild as I believe it is. So even if he missed a Patriots game, are you looking at maybe a pretty healthy Deion Dawkins for the Jets game? Or if it's going to be something that's going to linger, like we have seen with Greg Rousseau, Jake Krumro, Ed Oliver. But there's a silver lining with this if that is indeed the case based on the positional demands.
Yeah, well, hopefully the Jets. If not, it sounds like the Dolphins the week after that is a potential target for his return. I want to get into some of the players that have some bigger picture injuries, one that's injured and guys that are working back. We're going to go rapid fire here and cover 5 different players. We'll start with Christian Benford, another injury. There's always a mystery injury. Have you noticed this, right? There's the injuries that we see happen, and then we get to the day after, and Sean McDermott lets us know about some guy we had no clue about, and this week's injury, mystery injury was Christian Benford was it an oblique? He's on injured reserve. He'll miss 4 weeks. What's up with that?
So he suffered an oblique injury. He never received an in-game designation, which is important to note because I went back and looked at the film. He played through the third quarter and then kind of disappeared. And then you saw Elam come back out and play a little bit more. And then you did see Benford return on special teams. He did the same exact approach from when he broke his hand. He kind of exited quietly, played on special teams, and they got through the game there. So he had told Elena Getzenberg of ESPN that he didn't recall exactly when he suffered the injury, but that just kept on tightening up and getting worse throughout the game, which required him to leave here. I had found some different plays that it could have happened on, though it wasn't clear. Sometime in the third quarter, he tried tackling one guy out of bounds and then tried tackling another guy in the middle of the field and kind of got wrapped up and swung down there. But what happens is the abdomen flexes forward, and then there's that rotational component that you see, and that eccentric attraction where the lengthening of the muscle, that's where the oblique tear occurs there. So we don't know how severe it was, but it's severe enough that they want to put him on IR, which I haven't seen them do that for oblique tears in the past, but also we don't see too many severe oblique injuries to begin with. We saw Matt Milano, Stephon Diggs, John Miller, the only ones I could think of for the Bills. So give the guy a little bit of rest, get him ready for the playoffs.
Well, and I wonder with Xavier Rhodes being out of practice squad call-ups, Trey White ramping back up. Maybe if you just kind of look at it and say, hey, just take your time here. We want to make sure that you're back and healthy. Let's work through some more players here. Jamison Crowder has become a popular name because I think the Bills and Bills Mafia are realizing that they need another receiver here in this offense. He had a broken ankle, right? His timetable was indefinite. Any hope for him to return this year?
All right. So Jason Crowder suffered a left ankle injury in the Week 4 matchup against the Baltimore Ravens. This was on punt return. Got somebody crashed into his ankle and suffered a broken ankle. Don't know if there was a dislocation with it, but they said he had definitely fractured his ankle, which usually means a fractured fibula. At the time, I thought that he would be season-ending just because even the research shows that guys can come back in about 4 months. That's still hoping that everything is perfect. When I say perfect, is that there's no complications with the rehab or surgery, that there's no chronic inflammation in there, that he's able to ramp up pretty evenly there. So it was one of those things like, hey, he's probably done season ending, but if he's having a great rehab, then you can revisit it. And it seems like they're open to the idea. And his 4-month mark would be about wildcard weekend, divisional round. So he could be a nice addition if his rehab is going well. Think about what Jalen Waddle did with Alabama before he came out in the draft. And he came back in like 11 weeks, wasn't looking great. Hopefully Crowder has a little bit more time than Waddle had in his return. But if Crowder can be 80% getting back out there, maybe just do 1 or 2 things, then that's at least a guy who hasn't been absorbing the hits that you see with the other wide receiver core.
We'll see. That sounds like more of a contingency break glass in case of emergency. You're starting to talk coming back around the wild card round. Let's talk about Ike Bucker. And this is an interesting one. They started his 21-day window. So they have 21 days to either activate him to the roster or his season is over. Fascinating situation. Sean McDermott on the radio this morning said that there was a setback and he kind of had to go through this rehab twice with an Achilles. I know that we can all agree that there's a chance that Ike Bucker can help this offensive line, at least from a depth perspective. And then if you want to get big brained, you could talk about him. Well, does he step in at right guard and you move Ryan Bates to right tackle and now you have an upgraded offensive line? There's a lot of ideas there, but that starts with Ike Bucker actually being healthy. Is there a chance he comes back this year?
They kept on talking about that he could be. Looking back now, he must have suffered a setback sometime in May because we had even talked about this on the podcast in the summertime that he was seen in a boot at different events. So I thought that he was just trying to protect his ankle and Achilles area, but that must have been around the time he had a setback. We don't know the setback with that. He talked a little bit about that with Alex Bresky of the Batavia Daily News, and he wouldn't get into the details about that. So we might find out something more about that later on. But I want to know what happened that caused him to set back, because Achilles are about 9 to 12 months. He suffered the injury in week 16 last year. He could have been ready for training camp, but obviously that wasn't the case there. But he's another guy, break glass in case of emergency, get him back out there. And it's nice to have a fresh body, especially this late in the season.
Yeah, I was a little bit floored when Sean McDermott admitted to a setback. Like you don't normally get any details from Sean, and he gave us that. I was like, oh, okay, you want to talk about it. All right, that was interesting. Marquez Stevenson, his window has been open for about a week now, right? It feels like wide receiver, certainly an area that the Bills could use some bodies. Only 4 active ones right now on the roster. Any chance for Stevenson?
He's looking pretty good too. Stevenson posted up on his Instagram story about this kind of comeback and everything else. And he had suffered the injury back in early training camp. He'd gotten tied up with Kyrie Elam and came down. We knew that he had surgery on his right leg, or his right foot, I should say, because he was in a boot on a scooter and whatnot. And then he had shown on his Instagram story I referenced earlier that he had stitches on the outside portion of his foot, which suggested a 5th metatarsal fracture, which is that Jones fracture. And that will explain the timeline that we've seen there. So we know that if guys are returning 10 weeks, 12 weeks out, which is he's well past that, then the chance for re-injury is much less. So we shouldn't have a Sammy Watkins situation where it comes back too quick, re-injures the area, but he's also going to be a nice addition for somebody who hasn't played all season.
Last one, Micah Hyde. And I can't believe that I'm even bringing this up, but there's been some rumblings that there's a chance. Set us straight, Kyle.
Joe Biscaglia really got everything, the Athletic, he really got everything riled up there. So he was talking with Micah Hyde, and Hyde, he's got that competitor in him. He wants to come back and play. And the way the interview, at least reading it in the Athletic is hey, I want to come back. He said it's up to the doctors, though. And he said that most guys in the situation aren't really in a position to come back, but his is different. I don't know how different it is, but there might be a window for him to come back. And I know that's only going to increase the speculation, but the timeline originally for him, according to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, was 6 to 9 months. You do see that with the cervical fusions. I thought he had an anterior cervical discectomy with fusion, which is pretty common. That's the gold standard for the type of injury that Micah Hyde had. But to come back in 4 months, his timeline, he had it around right after week 3, after the Dolphins game. So he had the surgery then. And his timeline for 4 months out would be the wild card weekend. So that'd be a really, really aggressive timeline. We do know that the bones start fusing together about 3 to 6 months. So we'd have to see from a radiographic standpoint where that fusion's at, if he's having any pain, if he has his full range of motion, if he's basically able to do all the football activities and know that things are stable in there. Hypothetically, he could, but it's going to come down to the doctor because they don't want to go back in there and do another fusion later on or have screws break or anything crazy like that. But if he does come back, that'd be a real aggressive timeline compared to what they've done with Tre'Davious White, like Bacher, though we have some context behind that. And of course, Josh Allen was more aggressive, though we might find some more details out what's going on with all that stuff there. So we'll wait and see, but this is certainly one to watch.
Well, sounds like the Bills need a first-round bye in the playoffs, if you ask me, right? Get a chance. Some guys right around that timetable. So if they're going to come back and be meaningful contributors to the team, it's nice to have a week to kind of onboard them. But we'll see. Fingers crossed. As always, we really appreciate you offering your expertise here on the podcast.
Thank you, Joe.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. You can create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. LinkedIn has simple tools like screening questions to help make it easy for you to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedinjobs.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedinjobs.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Bills Mafia, I want you to join me for a minute of meditation brought to you by Zach's Mighty Tortilla Chips. Close your eyes and picture yourself in front of your football Sunday snack spread. Do you see a chip and a dip bowl? Now picture the wildest dip of your dreams, getting all the layers of a 7-layer dip in one scoop or that huge avocado chunk in your guacamole. Now open your eyes and head right to Wegmans because those dreams can become a reality with Zach's Mighty Tortilla Chips. They make the most delicious chips that are literally made to dip, and the corn they use is grown right here in upstate New York. So let today be the day that you stop dreaming and start living. My wife and I, we love these chips. They're sturdy, they're crunchy, they're perfectly seasoned, and they taste great. You can find Zach's Mighty Tortilla Chips at all Wegmans locations in the chip aisle. Zach's Mighty, take the dip of your dreams. All right, folks, let's do the predictions. I've got 5 of them for you. My first prediction is one that is going to come of no surprise. This is one of those, whoever wins the turnover battle wins the game. It's critical. This is not the game where you want to have turnover problems at all. That would allow you to fall right into that Patriots script. Take care of the football. It is critical on Thursday night. Number 2, I am predicting a linebacker or defensive back sack for the Bills. Someone in that back 7 is going to get a sack. I think that Leslie Frazier will be aggressive with his blitzing. We've talked all about the data all week long. Leslie Frazier surely knows it. And so whether that's Poyer or Hamlin or Edmonds, Milano, Taron Johnson, someone's going to get Mac Jones down. And I think that the Bills will be aggressive with their pressure packages to include back 7 defenders. So a linebacker or defensive back sack for the Bills. Number 3, multiple offensive touches for Nyheim Hines. I know that I've kind of messed around with Nyheim Hines predictions quite a bit here. But this is finally a situation where they've actually had a normal week of practice for the first time in, 3-4 weeks. So there's been some opportunity now to really factor him in and get comfortable with him and allow him to get comfortable with the Bills and get him a couple touches. I talked about this Patriots front seven. It's big, it's stout, it's physical, but it's not very athletic. And so I think a player like Nyheim Hines, getting him attacking the edges, getting him some catches, allowing him to be a guy that you maybe hand the ball to on a draw play can really create some good offense for the Bills. And so, yeah, look, I acknowledge that there's a chance that they literally traded for Nyheim Hines to be the return guy. That wouldn't surprise me. But I think there's an opportunity for him to help this offense as well. And I think this is a week where he gets multiple touches for the first time offensively for the Bills. Number 4, I think John Brown's going to be active for this game. The Bills only have 4 wide receivers on the roster. Tanner Gentry is out of call-ups. And I think that puts John Brown in a position to play in this game. And I don't think he's going to play a ton of snaps, maybe 5. But I think you can use John Brown to help this become a space game like we talked about. You can allow John Brown to help you out-athlete the Patriots. And whether that's on a screen or a vertical shot or some type of combination to scheme him open, I think that can happen. Again, I'm not going to sit here and predict that he catches a pass. I'm not even going to say that. But I think there's a path for John Brown to help this team this week by being active. And so I think that you'll see him dress on Thursday night. And I think that's a fairly aggressive prediction in my opinion. He's only been on the team for less than a week. So I think that he'll be one of the active players on Thursday night. And then lastly, do I think the Bills win this game? I'm concerned about this game. I am. I've talked about it a lot. But I think the Bills win. I think the Bills have done a great job of being resilient, right? I talked a lot about that. And I think it's positioned them well for a game like this. And so if that resilience can come together with some dynamic playmaking like we've seen from the Bills in the past in a game where, look, they don't have Von Miller or Deion Dawkins, but they're kind of more healthy than they've been in a while at other spots. And it feels like Josh Allen just further and further removed from that injury, and hopefully he's feeling better. And against a team in the Patriots that's having a great season defensively, but Josh has really done well against them. And so I'm hoping that all of that kind of blends together for Josh Allen to have himself one heck of a night and for the Bills to put on a show on Thursday night. Look, I think it's going to be a tough game. I really do. I think it could look a lot like the last 3 games. But if Josh Allen can really find that confidence and play to his standard, man, that'd be big for the Bills on Thursday night. And I think to some degree that will happen. And that's why I'm leaning into the Bills being able to pull this one out. I don't think the Patriots are very dynamic on offense, and maybe they got on track a little bit against the Vikings last week, but the Vikings are pretty bad on defense. Now, I don't think the Bills are playing great on defense right now, but I think the familiarity between these two teams probably helps the Bills a little bit to be able to counter some of what New England's been able to do. And I have a lot of respect for the Patriots and their coaching staff and their ability to scheme and game plan and take things away. But the Bills have had the edge here in this matchup, in this series over the last couple of seasons. And so I think that I'm kind of leaning into Josh Allen being the best quarterback on the field. I'm leaning on the Bills and kind of what they've been through to be able to show up and meet this moment. And I think that the Bills there's a path for them to be able to take advantage of some of these Patriots' weaknesses. And I have some level of confidence that they will do that. So there you have it. Predicting a Bills win on Thursday night. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here today on the podcast. Well, I guess not really today because I'm going to drop the Thursday episode later on this afternoon in time for your commute home. So I'd expect that to drop around 4:30 p.m. this afternoon, and you'll have 2 podcasts in your feed to get you to kick off on Thursday night. Again, Amazon Prime, and then it's on the local ABC channel if you're in Buffalo. So looking forward to the Bills getting this first AFC East win of the season. I can't believe it's going to be December before that happens, but that's the world we live in right now, and the Bills have a great chance here over the next 3 weeks to stack up some wins in the division. All right, folks, that's it for today. Or I keep saying that. That's it for now. You'll have another episode later today. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you again this afternoon.